viewers. You are tuned in to Folk Friend. This is stream number 51, Folky Fridays. I don't know why I'm looking over there. I'm so used to the camera being there. I'm looking at a camera which isn't there. Hello, viewers. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. You're watching Folk Friend, your one-stop shop for Celtic backing guitar tutorials. Today, I've got my friend Theo from Parmakis Instruments. Going to play some banjo and talk a little bit about a new violin he's just finished building. And,
I'm so confused by the fact that the preview isn't showing what I'm actually doing.
It's weird,
like
isn't it?
Time
it's
lapse.
like, yeah, quite a bit behind. Yeah. Do you want to tell the viewers a little bit about your instruments while we're here?
Yes, absolutely. So I make violins, violas, cellos. I also restore and set up various types of instrument, including fretted instruments, banjos, guitars. Anything you throw at me, I can probably do something to make it sound and play a bit better. Well, anything with strings anyway. And yes, this is a violin which I finished this week. Still needs varnishing, but I put the strings on it so I could hear what it sounded like, and it sounded so nice that I thought, well, might as well bring it down. So, a week ago, this was still in two pieces, and, up until 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock today, it didn't have strings on. So, yes, this is absolutely fresh new violin. Which probably means it'll go out of tune every few moments, but it's, yeah, when it's in tune, it sounds nice.
Well, what is that, Theo?
So this is maple. Maple for the back, maple for the neck and for the sides. The front is spruce, and the fingerboard and fittings are ebony.
Oh, okay. Oh, this looks amazing. Oh well, we'll look forward to hearing some of that in a bit. No worries, Brian, about last week. Can't quite read what that says over there. Oh, yeah, Frank, thanks for tuning in. Who else have we got? Frank, evening all in Devon. Very good. We have an advert. Oh, that's good. Marvellous. Give me your pennies. That's 5 pennies probably. 5 pennies in my bank account. Excellent. Very good. No, thank you all very much for watching the adverts and for tuning in. Hopefully we'll entertain you with some tunes of some sort. Yeah, we haven't actually thought of anything to play yet. We haven't had time to do that bit, so we're just going to make it up as we go along.
Yeah. There's probably going to be a lot in D. I don't know whether you want to drop any Ds.
Yeah, why not?
My guitar basically lives in drop D, so if I ever want to play any full chords, I'm like, why does that sound a bit strange? Oh yeah. So, some jigs.
banjo.
Yeah, it's got some punch to it.
Oh, it's cool. What's that tune called?
That was Lark in the Morning.
Ah.
It's one of my go-to tunes.
Mm.
And it works nicely on the banjo, despite never having been written with the banjo inside.
When's it from?
Well, it's
Pre-banjo.
certainly pre-banjo in Irish music, and absolutely 100% pre-Clawhammer banjo in Irish music, because that's still quite a rare thing, which I don't get, because as far as I'm concerned, jigs on Clawhammer banjo work so well. I honestly can't understand why not everyone's doing them, but there you go.
That's something I was going to ask you about, because your style of banjo playing is not a sort of traditional Irish style at all. I mean,
No,
I've never really seen many other people playing Irish tunes, Clawhammer.
Yeah, it's kind of... My style is a bit of a hybrid, so it generally confuses people, because if I'm in an Irish session, people are like, why aren't you playing a tenor banjo? But then also, it's not quite, it's not the American style either, because basically in American old-time music, there are no jigs. For some reason, all the jigs just, presumably they went over there to start with, but then they just disappeared.
Yeah.
So if I go to an American session, then people get confused because I sound too Irish. And if I go to an Irish session, people are like, that sounds right, but why aren't you playing a tenor banjo?
Yeah.
Just saying.
How did you end up doing that then? Did you start out playing American stuff, or?
I started out listening to a lot of Irish music when I was growing up. But when I started to play music, I ended up with an open back 5-string banjo. Then when I started to learn, Clawhammer was the style that people played on those banjos, and American old time was what people played in that style. So I learned to, I started off playing American old time tunes, but then eventually I was like, I want to play the tunes I remember listening to growing up, and I want to play something that I can play with people at sessions. And American old time sessions are few and far between, and I don't know, I don't really like American old time sessions, despite the fact that I enjoy playing American old time music. It can be a bit of a strange atmosphere.
Oh, right, fair enough. No offence to the American old timers out there. Like. Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's because it's really quite. I like the way it's always got that sort of offbeat punch on the offbeats with the Clawhammer style. It sounds great on Irish. It's the same as when I sort of strum the jigs upside down, so you get that.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. I think that kind of offbeat thing really pushes the tunes along nicely.
Yeah, because underneath your basic rhythm, you're not going. A jig is not. You're not counting out 6 even beats.
No.
You've got that swing to it, and so with Clawhammer, that swing just comes naturally. You just that happens by default. So then you just put the tune in over the top. You've got melody and rhythm all out of a very simple right hand, which leaves the left hand free to do all the fireworks.
Yeah, it's cool. Chord-wise for that, it's just very standard drop D things I was doing. I'm going to be doing a video about John Doyle tomorrow, which is going to be covering these kinds of chords in more detail because he uses them a lot. But it's basically just a D power chord in drop D is kind of default D chord. Then you can do G by just flattening the index finger, so you've got what I call pop punk G, which is like sounds like it's out of a Blink-182 song. And then if you keep that flat and do the 7th fret on all the strings, you've got pop punk A, which is like an A sus4, I suppose. So that's really nice. Just a kind of default chord progression for D, so I use that a lot if I'm in drop D. Just going to walk all the way over here because I see we've got some comments. Oh, hey Ed, thanks for tuning in, all the way from Tucson. Missed last week as well, on the road. Oh, cool. Theo's banjo is louder than the guitar. Yeah. That's
banjos for you. I mean, I think essentially I I can just play quieter. I think that's probably the easiest way to sort that out. But also the camera is closer to the banjo, so I'm not sure whether we want to.
We could swap if you like, but
yeah, I mean,
if you play the fiddle, we'll have to swap back.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
Change is as good as the rest.
Okay.
The natural damping effect of the sofa might serve as a bit of equalisation.
Yeah, it's a bit strange that if you sit on that sofa, you kind of just sink into it as you play, which is a bit odd, but. You still see everybody, can't you?
Yeah, just don't swing to your left.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the other issue with instruments with necks on, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the banjo's all right because the banjo just goes up at 45 degrees and you're fine. But
man, if you did it with that banjo, I'd get skewered. What else have we got?
Do you want something with weird chords that you can talk about, or do you want something with easy chords?
Oh, I don't mind, whatever.
Because I've got my strange D Lydian to G Mixolydian jig.
D Lydian. All right, go on then. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you write that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
That's
cool.
why it's weird.
Yeah, no, it's great. This is here we go then. Let's get the mode wheels out because this is an interesting thing. This is one of the things that I sort of talk about on the channel sometimes. Is why is there no Lydian folk music?
Well, there is in Scandinavia, to be fair.
Is there?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of the kind of the polskas and the bits and pieces. I'm sure a lot of those, whether or not they're full Lydian, they have a lot of sharpened fourth accidentals enough that it feels Lydian.
Yeah. Well, this is it because I think with Lydian, the reason why there isn't much naturally occurring Lydian music, where I suppose, for want of a better term, like uneducated Lydian music, where it's not like you've gone, oh, I'm going to write a Lydian tune. You know, people don't subconsciously gravitate towards Lydian. I think it's because of the spacings within it. It's not satisfying when you put chords with it.
Yeah, one thing that because I feel like a lot of Irish music and generally kind of, I guess, folk music of the British Isles I tend to feel like rather than it being based around scales, it's based around a set of notes that various scales fit into. So, you know, you get D major, you get a lot of tunes that go between D major and E Dorian, like stuff like Drowsy Maggie, because you've just got the same scale, but you move over the tonal centre.
Yeah.
So by that logic, you could shift into a Lydian mode using those notes, and a few tunes seem to hint at that, like a few old tunes seem to, like there's a tune called The Peacock Followed the Hen, which is an old English slip jig, and that's got the A part in A Dorian.
Yeah.
So you've got your sharp and sixth, you've got your F sharp in there.
Yeah.
And then the B part goes into effectively C Lydian. So you got. Hang on. You've got C major, but it hangs on that F sharp long enough that it hints at C Lydian.
Yeah.
But that's just using the notes of the mode that you've already established with the A Dorian. Whereas if the A part was in A major, if the A part was in A minor, you wouldn't get that. You wouldn't naturally, you just go into C major, relative major, you'd be normal.
Is that tune very, very old?
I think it's in Playford, so I think it's 1600s.
Yeah. There's a lot of weird tunes. Playford, a lot of their tunes are quite odd as well, aren't they? But...
Well, a lot of those tunes, because there's lots of tunes in there, and it seems like it crosses over that time between where you had not that much harmony, you just had tunes over drones. So you could have really interesting stuff going on with the melody, and then some of the tunes feel really quite modern, quite chordy, quite... strong tonal centre, the kind of stuff that you see in English folk music basically from then on. All the stuff that's easy to play on melodians.
That's what I was thinking, because with the Lydian mode particularly, you do end up playing just chords 1 and 2. It's very hard to get away from just playing chords 1 and 2 if you're trying to accompany them. And so I suppose when it stopped being purely melodic music and it became music that was written with the harmonies in mind, or written round the harmonies, that's probably why there's no Lydian folk music, I suppose, because of that influence.
And then once people get harmonies in their heads, once people start practicing scales and arpeggios of those harmonies, it then means when they come to play a tune, they're subconsciously channeling that. It's very hard. It's very easy just to improvise a tune. And then you realise, and you go, oh, that tune sounded nice. Oh, I've just written a tune. And then you look, and you think, hang on a second, all I've done is gone up and down the scale a few times and then done a few arpeggiated chords. That's it. That sounded really nice, really natural. It just worked. But it's just following formula. So you have to make yourself break out of that formula.
Yeah. It's very strange that there's not. Also, because when you look at the Overtone series, a lot of the sort of prehistoric, the ancient instruments of the British Isles were mostly kind of wind instruments that were playing the Overtone series initially, before I suppose there was things with holes as well, obviously, But so it's strange that there isn't more kind of Lydian dominant sounding music that survives. Like, why did that all die out? I assume it's because of the influence of harmonic instruments.
I feel like lots of tunes were pushed into a major scale, though, so the tunes persisted, but they just shoved them sideways into something that they fitted in, because it's like with a lot of Scots pipe music, the bagpipes have a natural flattened seventh, so a lot of those tunes were Mixolydian by default, and then, when they started coming along doing marching bands, having a piano banging out chords, the pianist was probably like, oh, that tune's nice, but it doesn't quite sound right with my chords. Why not? Can you just do something about that note? And so then, once they started being played more by fiddles and other instruments that could play notes outside of that natural scale, then they started then getting pushed into, that note, that weird note. Can we just get rid of that? Can we just make that into a major seventh where it makes sense?
Yeah. It'd be really interesting to see if there's any historical records of people arguing over this stuff. Just even like the turn of the last century, or a little bit before, when the pianos were getting involved in a big way.
Yeah. Because I know there's a lot of American old-time players that will, if they're fiddle players, they deliberately play a note somewhere between a major third and a minor third a lot of the time. And then if they're playing instruments where they have to choose, then often they'll go minor, sometimes go major, but often they'll go minor, but then a lot of the old guys would apparently say, look, if you're playing chords, I want you to play major chords for this, and the guitar players will be like, but why? It's a minor key tune. No, it's just a tune, but I think it sounds better when you're playing edgy major chords against it.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing that I find interesting about this as well is playing the violin. I mean, when I was playing fiddle, my fiddle teacher showed me to play like a D scale. You'd play it with the major third raised always. So kind of melodic wise, it's nicer to raise a major third so that the semitones are always leading into the fourth and leading into the root note from the seventh. So those are raised. And yet, if you did that with the chords, they'd be horrendously out of tune.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing with fretted instruments. You're stuck with even temperament, which means that a lot of you're never quite perfectly in tune with those nice sounding notes for all scales. Every scale is just slightly out. So in order for your F sharp to sound nice when you're in, when you're in any key apart from D major, your F sharp has to be slightly flatter than you would naturally want it if you were playing a D major scale. And you just cope with that. But then if you're learning to play fiddle with a lot of chord plays, you naturally adjust your intonation to match that, even though maybe when you're playing solo, you more push towards that sharp and sweeter sounding third. But that's why the B string on the guitar is a nightmare to tune.
Yeah, because I was thinking of that. If I'm ever in E minor, I always tune it sharp. Yeah. Because it sounds crap otherwise.
In your G major, because you've almost got an open G major chord with the guitar, almost on those top strings, and it always sounds that little bit nicer if you tune the third string, if you tune the second string sharper than the tuner would have you tune it. But then once you start playing any other chords, it's like, no, I can see why. I can see why it needs to be flat, even though it sounds horrible open.
Yeah. The moral of the story is purists get microtonal instruments or fretless ones. What we got in the comment? Oh, thank you, Brian. Brian says awesome. Matt says excellent. Banjo sounds great. Michael Whalen, well, you made my Friday. Set a reminder this time so I didn't forget. Thanks, Michael. Banjo sounds great. Playing along on the mountain dulcimer. Cool.
Oh, nice.
Oh, and Mike's in Boston. Nice. Well, thank you all for watching. Play some more tunes, is it?
Yeah. What sort of thing would you like to demonstrate? Because I can pull out all sorts.
Irish reels?
Yeah, I could probably do a few reels on the fiddle actually. That might be.
Yeah. For people that have not been with us from the beginning, this is Theo makes instruments, and this is his latest violin, which is fresh out of the workshop today, is it?
Yeah, literally an hour before I came here, I was putting the strings on this violin for the first time. So
it's not even varnished yet.
And this will be for sale, so if anybody's interested in buying it, then look up Parmakis Instruments on Facebook.
I think I've put a link to the Facebook page actually in the comments in the. Let's have a look. Yeah, if you are interested in Theo's instruments, which I would definitely go and check out because they're amazing, there's a link there on Facebook.
Should we swap stools so that I've got the elbow space?
Oh, so you can stand up, yeah.
Also that I can sit, sitting on the stool is fine as well. It's just having anything to my right, I start worrying about elbowing it. that tune just keeps going.
Yeah.
You have
It's
to
one of them
force
you
it
can
to
loop all
stop.
day, can't you?
Well, it's one of those tunes that doesn't resolve to the tonic, so it's always pushing you back into the da 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 da. And then it wants to, you know, you want to go back to the da 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 da.
Mm.
This is the only problem with new strings.
Oh dear. What do you think about the idea of putting geared tuners on fiddles?
I have done it. I've had a couple of customers, because I repair instruments as well as making them, and I've had a couple of customers this year who wanted geared tuners. And I've done it. They work. As a traditional violin maker, it feels slightly weird to be putting something into the instrument that's not wooden, but you kind of get used to it, and they do work.
Yeah. I mean, I had to go on a fiddle at a folk festival a couple of years ago that had geared tuners on it, and it was nice because I was like, I can't get it sharp enough with the fine tuner.
Yeah.
And he kind of just went, ooh, oh, it's done. You don't have to faff about for 5 minutes getting the thing to stay in the slot and everything. You know, it was nice.
I think I like the tactile feedback of when you're turning the peg, you can feel how tight the string is by how hard it is to turn the peg, and I think I subconsciously get used to that. And then if I'm tuning a fiddle with geared tuners, I'm always feeling like, how tight is this string though? How is, you know, because it could be close to breaking point and you wouldn't know, you wouldn't be able to feel it. But I've done that with that banjo, because I restored that banjo and originally it had friction pegs on it.
Yeah.
And I replaced those because I didn't want to replace those with modern style tuners, because I knew they would just look wrong. They wouldn't be in keeping with the rest of the instrument. So I treated that to geared. So those are geared violin pegs. Well, I think they're actually viola pegs because they've got a slightly chunkier.
Oh, that's cool. They're well hidden away though, aren't they? The mechanism and everything.
Yeah, because it's all inside the peg, so that's
brilliant.
You know, it's very neat, and they work nicely on that banjo.
Should show them to the world. Where is the world? The world's over there. If you could see that, but that was cool.
So yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't put them on my new instruments as standard, just because people often don't expect them, and you're trying to sell a violin in a world of people who are used to violins performing in a very specific way, and if anything's a bit different, you sometimes have to justify that, because they're like, oh, this is a bit strange. But I would definitely fit them if somebody wanted to buy this violin, for instance, and was like, yeah, that's nice, but can I have it with geared tuning pegs, please? Then I definitely fit them.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I've seen a few people on the internet arguing about it. But I think it seems like a good idea to me, definitely. Chords. A couple of weeks ago I did a video about power chords, and I said power chords in E minor are really good, and that tune set there is a case in point. If you use an E minor power chord, it's very convenient. Very convenient chords for E minor. You can just slide it down, and you can move it onto the bottom two strings as well. So that's really convenient, and from that you've got, if you add an extra finger on there, you've got a minor third, so that gives you a shape like an E minor power chord, E minor bar chord rather, but except that you're not barring, so you don't have to do the bar, which is the tricky part, and that is really, really useful. And if you take the index finger off that and move it to the 8th fret of the bottom string, you've got a C major 7. So that's nice as your chord 6. And the other main shapes I was using in that was this one, which is an A minor 9. So it's middle finger on the bottom string, 5th fret. You leave the A string in it because that's your root note, obviously. And then it's the 5th fret on the next two strings as well. And that's really nice as a kind of open, airy A minor chord. And if you slide it up 2, you've got an open airy B minor 11, which is also good. And just an interesting little thing you can do, if you're in the key of E minor and you're playing along with something, consider starting a B part on chord 4 instead of chord 1. So if you're going along, and then you could go, so that's just going between chord 4 and chord 5 for the B part, or is it the C part? I'm not too sure. But
yeah, no, that is the C part.
That's the C part.
Yeah,
yeah.
But I mean, the same. It probably makes more sense to do it on the C part anyway, if it's in a 3-part tune, because then you've got that unresolved, and then especially with that tune, because it's naturally unresolved anyway, you leading right into you want to get back to the root, you want to get back, and the tune wants to get back to the root, and so then boom, you're in with the A part again. Exactly.
Yeah, it sounds it makes sense for the 3rd part to be the sort of airy one in that one, I think, and then. Yeah, it's weird that the A part is actually the most definite part in that tune, isn't it? But yeah. So yeah, that's a fun thing. If you're in a minor key, try starting a section on chord 4 and not going back to chord 1 till the following section. Also, you can do it with chord 6 as well. If you start a section on chord 6, which is C if you're in E minor, just go between chord 6 and chord 7. That's 4 to 5 just to round it off nicely.
Well, 6 and 7 are basically your relative majors of 4 and 5 anyway, aren't
Exactly, yeah, it's the same thing in a brighter version of the same thing, yeah. Is that the final colour of the violin, Brian says?
No, so this violin this is the colour that the wood is naturally when you're working with it, because this is the colour that the wood is. I will varnish it. I know lots of people see the instrument like this and they go, that looks very nice, could you just leave it like that? And you could leave it like this for about 3 days, and then already you can see those places where you've got bits of sweat, bits of colour, bits of anything that touches the violin will adhere to the wood and stain it and seep in, and there's nothing you can do about it. Is that your phone?
Oh, it's behind you. Aha.
Ah, yes. So,
sorry.
Yeah, essentially the varnish gives it colour, but it also seals the wood. So there's colours you expect violins to be. This will probably end up being sort of reddish, brownish, standard violin colour. But essentially, even if you wanted the violin to stay this colour, you would have to do something to the wood. On the other hand, if somebody called me up tomorrow and said, I want to buy that violin and I want it to be that colour, then I would discuss options with them and go, well, it can be this colour, but I'm going to have to do something to seal the wood. Even if it's some kind of clear lacquer, the wood would need sealing, because otherwise it would be very vulnerable to atmospheric conditions. So, short answer, this violin isn't going to stay this colour, but you could get a violin almost this colour if you wanted to, but not quite, because you'd have to put something on the wood.
Can you do me one in zebra stripes?
Yeah, that could be done. I mean, the wood itself naturally probably doesn't show up that well there, but that's another thing. The wood has natural figure to it, and quite often,
really nice.
Yeah, quite often once you start to put varnish or any kind of stain on it, that actually shows up a lot more. So at the moment, you can only see those stripes that are naturally in the wood. You can only see them kind of faintly, but as soon as that starts to get a stain on it, those will really pop out, so you'll really see that figure. And that's one of the reasons why violin makers insist on using woods like this. Are a lot harder to carve than if they were unfigured. You know, you've got to watch your grain direction, there's only certain ways you can carve it, but the upside is at the end you get something that naturally looks really nice, and you don't have to paint any patterns on it because the pattern is in the wood.
This maple that you've got on the back there, that's got cross stripes as well as the sort of vertical grain.
Yeah.
So what's that caused by? Is that?
So that's called the flame, and basically that occurs because as the tree is growing, it gets buffeted by the wind, and so it's rather than the grain going straight up the trunk of the tree, the grain is actually going like that up the tree, which means when you take a slice out of it, you're seeing a bit of the side of the grain, then you're seeing the end of the grain, which is naturally darker because that's where you've got all the pores that take in, basically conduct the sap around the tree. Then that winds back in and you've got a bit of side grain again. That winds out again, and that's all the way up the piece of wood.
Cool.
But because this piece is just a one-piece bag, it's actually a cut of the wood where this half has got the stripes, but this half hasn't. Really, it's just that, but that's just because that's how it came out of the tree. So you can see how they, how they occur, and then how they just fade into normal, boring. That's
a really interesting pattern, actually. It's yeah. It's a shame. Well, I'm sure it'll look nicer when it's varnished, and you'll be able to see it more clearly. Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite funny because when I was working on carving this piece of wood, those stripes are actually harder physically to carve. So often you'll carve the flamed maple left to right, whereas you'll carve just the plain grained wood up and down because that's naturally going with the grain. So when I was working on this piece, I had to basically carve this half of it left to right and this half of it up and down.
Oh God. So how long does it take to carve a back like that? Because it's the contours of it as well. It's kind of going up in the middle, and then you've got a ridge that changes the height of the hill going outwards. So that must have taken you ages.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take that long when you get used to it. I don't know, to do the outside shape, I'd probably say maybe 3 days. So not 3 days from it being a chunk of wood, but 3 days from when you've got the rough outline to when you're ready to start scooping it out.
3 days of solid carving, though. That's
3 days of. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it is just doing it lots, getting used to doing it, and then knowing where you can really hog out loads of wood and when to stop and slow down because you're nearly there. But this piece of wood was very confusing to carve because a lot of the time you can look at the piece of wood and you can basically see what's going on with it visually. But with this piece of wood, the grain is so confusing. I was getting so confused looking at it. I was thinking, I know this is straight. My measuring tools are telling me this is straight. But my eyes going, oh no, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
So in the end, I just had to look away from it and tell what shape it was by feel most of the time.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. What crazy science. Should we have some more tunes?
Yeah. Do you want to do some hornpipes?
Yeah, why not? Everybody's ringing me today. We've got a phone call off Felix, the whistle player, as well. I'm gonna ignore him, but sorry, Felix, if you're watching, I'll get back to you.
I assume he's nowhere nearby. We can't drag him in to join.
No, he's in what do you call it, Llangollen at the moment, so far as I know. Unless he's come back, maybe that's why he's ringing me. But no, he's down there in Wales at the moment.
The first one's gonna be in D minor. The second one's gonna be in A major. I don't know whether you want to do anything tuning wise.
I'll stay with standard. I think.
always lose track of the repeats in hornpipes. I'm fairly sure that was the right number.
Yeah, it sounded good to me, yeah. Did you ever see that band Glory Strokes that did the sort of metal Kayleys for
I never saw them live. No, maybe I did see them live once at Cayley Sock. I definitely heard them.
I know that they were from Sheffield, weren't they? A few of them. No, the melodeon player was from Sheffield because he was in Trinkler as well. He played in, I think.
I don't know. The whole Sheffield folk scene is just so
quite interconnected.
Yes.
But yeah, I always think of them with that tune. They used to do a really good like metal version of it. It's great. It's really funny.
Well, that tune's also, well, hornpipes in general are always nice just to drop off into kind of drum and bass breaks with them.
Yeah.
Because you can just endlessly. They're one of the most fun types of tunes just to drop out and improvise with.
Yeah, definitely. They're good and stompy as well, aren't they? You can sort of and play them at double time the backing and. Yeah. Actually, I've never done any videos about that. You know. That would be quite an interesting little thing to have a look at. I'll have to do that at some point. Chord-wise with that one, there's one really useful little chord run you can take out of that, which is I nicked it off Django Reinhardt. If you're playing around a key like A minor, where you're starting off somewhere convenient in the middle of the neck, it also works in G minor or B minor. There's this shape which is really, really useful. This is the first inversion of a G major chord, and if you take that finger down a fret, it becomes a minor chord. So that's major and that's minor. So with this shape, in fact, I'll bring it over here so you can see it properly because I'm a bit small. Thank you. that's the shape. I think you can see it there when YouTube catches up. Something like that, and if it's like that, it's minor. And what you do is if you start off with A minor, then you play the first inversion of G, like that, then you slide it up one, and you do that, so that's now the first inversion of A minor. All of those are substitutes for an A minor chord, believe it or not. So if you've got a tune like that one, where you've got a big section in the B part, it goes do da da ba da ba da ba do ba do ba do ba do ba. You could play A minor over all of that if you wanted to. And so instead of doing that, I've run up this shape. So I've done A minor 7 like that, then the first inversion of G, then the first inversion of A minor, and that leads me into chord 4, which is D. Well, it was D7 in that instance because we're in A Dorian. So yeah, that's a really useful little chord run, and it's really handy in lots of other keys as well. Something like that.
So it's kind of like at the beginning of Free Falling, where it's all in D, but it goes between D, D sus2, D sus4, walking around a D chord, but getting the other notes out of it so it doesn't just sound boring.
Yeah, yeah. We've got a message off Felix. He says, "Hup lads."
Word.
Oh, Brian, I am finishing my book on inversions. I finally finished the Finale Guitar online shop, which has been my project for ages. And the actual physical Finale Guitar shop is open and ready and trading and everything. And if you are someone who needs a physical guitar shop in the Sheffield area, by the way, do pop in. We are open as normal for repairs and instruments and setups and all the rest of it. And lessons, of course, as well. And lessons over Zoom if you're elsewhere in the world and you want to learn to play guitar.
I also teach banjo, so if you want to learn how to play all sorts of, well, I mean, I teach the standard American clawhammer old-time tunes, but also if you want to learn how to play Celtic clawhammer, then yeah,
Celthammer.
Yeah, look up Theo Parmakis clawhammer banjo lessons or Theo Parmakis music lessons, and I'm sure Nye can do all the link things.
Yeah, I can do that now if you want.
Yeah, go on.
This is also the man, by the way, for people who have read my book. You know all those nice multicoloured chord diagrams that are in it? Oh, sorry, Brian, let me just finish what I never actually said what I was going to say.
You're sitting on your chord wheel, I'm so distracted.
Sorry. Yeah, I said I was going to write a book about how to use chord inversions, and I have written it. I just need to make it all look pretty, and I've been meaning to do it for ages, and now that all the other jobs are done, I will actually start doing it next week. So in about a month, it'll be ready. It is coming. What was I doing? What's your website, Theo, for lessons?
So I've got the Parmakis Instruments website.
Yeah.
And then I've also, I think it's clawhammerlessons.co.uk for the lessons, I think. Just look up,
Wow.
just check that's not
Well,
somebody
you got
else.
lucky with the domain there.
Oh yeah, boom.
That's the one.
Nice.
Gosh. Cool. Right, I'll put a link to Theo's banjo lessons if you want to have a look at learning Clawhammer style. Shout out to Felix as well. Come back and play some tunes with us, you deserter. Yeah, that's that. Very good. Yeah, inversions are a really good way of making movement within a chord progression, but without really actually doing anything. There's a lot of chords, like if you're in a major key, chord 3 very much sounds like a blockage. It's like an obstacle and you've got to actively overcome it. If you want to not sound like you've got a blockage in your chord progression, you can play...
Oh god, that's that weird... So that's the weird progression. You know the ballad of Frankie and Judas Priest by Bob Dylan that's on... oh god, which one is it on? The sort of... Oh, I can't even remember which album it's on, but there's that weird progression that's in there that seems, yeah, like you said, seems like some kind of blockage that you've got to get around. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in a lot of things, isn't it? But it's not really a sort of comfortable progression. And if you want, it's good if you want to make a roadblock, it's all right. But if you don't want to make a roadblock, if you play the first inversion of chord 1 instead, you've still got the same bass movement, but that blockage isn't there, so it just slides smoothly. So the chord inversions are good for that, you know, they're friction-free versions of chords in a way. But anyway, keep an eye out for that book, it's coming soon. Time we've got, it's 6:30 already.
Ah.
That can't be right, can it?
Ah, could be, to be honest.
Don't know, one more set?
Yep.
Found a nice book on Euro Amazon, they will ship to America. It's on Amazon.com as well, mate, you can buy it on Amazon.com. But I will say, it's very expensive on Amazon.com for the paperback, and that is because Amazon charged me almost all of the money for the printing and the royalties. I get about £3, which is about $4 or a bit less on every sale of that book, even though it's like $30 to buy. So if you don't mind, please buy the ebook version instead, which is on folkfriend.co.uk. Because also, as well as that, you get the downloads free with the ebook version, and the paperback one you have to buy them separately. Which I know that annoys a lot of people, but the reason it's like that is because I don't get paid otherwise. So yeah, sorry about that, but yeah, get the ebook. It's much cheaper and it's just as good, and it comes with free audio downloads as well. So that's on folkfriend.co.uk/shop.
Should we swap places again? So that
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not
okay, yeah.
booming out the camera.
I'll be next to my drink then.
Slip jigs?
Slip jigs, yeah, wicked. Why not?
I was thinking of torturing you with polkas, but I decided against it. I'll spare
Oh
you.
God, don't no. Spare the audience who will just see me falling off the back.
Well, no, but at least then you could explain. You know, if some psycho banjo player throws polkas at you, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna cope?
Kick him and run away. Apologies for the slightly dubious tuning on that one.
Well, at least it's you who's out of tune and not me. It wasn't the banjo player this time.
That should be the name of the stream, shouldn't it? It was not the banjo player that was out of tune. Yeah, nothing much to say about those really. Those are slip jigs. Slip jigs are very good. Lots of fun to play. Slightly confusing on the strumming because if you like the kind of patterns where you always change direction every quaver, which I generally do, then you end up starting one bar on a down and the following bar on an up. So that can be quite confusing, but they're fun once you get your head around them. Yeah, chords just kind of standard shenanigans, and that's about it really. That's Fox Hunter's the second one, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's the first one?
The Black Pullover, one that I wrote.
Oh, cool. The Black Pullover.
Pullover.
Pullover. What's a pullover?
It was something that somebody I know said one time when they were slightly intoxicated, and it just stuck in my head, and I was like, you know, this could be the name of a tune.
Ah, yeah. Well, it sounds good anyway, yeah. Cool. I think we'll call it a day there because it is my dinner time. Pretty much. Would you want to do one more set or shall we?
Oh yeah, go on then.
Cool. So we'll do one more set of something. So yeah, thank you all very much for tuning in. I'll be cutting it off after this, so we'll see you all next week. I'll be doing something or other, same time, Friday next week. And tomorrow, I will be doing a mammoth video editing session tonight, and hopefully by tomorrow lunchtime I should have a video about John Doyle ready to go as well. So that'll be out tomorrow lunchtime. Check out Theo's instruments as well, they're linked in the comments and in the description. And if anyone wants guitar or banjo lessons, obviously clawhammerbanjolessons.com for Theo, and folkfriend.co.uk for me, or finaleguitar.co.uk for the shop. So check all that out. And if you need strings and capos and so on as well, finaleguitar.co.uk, check out the online shop because I finally finished making it. It's very, very good. Loads of stuff on there, strings and instruments and all sorts. Nice. Cool. Thank you very much for watching. See you next week.